Hey everybody, go to my website, theostomyguy.com. Order my book, Memoirs of a Bagman, The Ostomy Guy Story. There's a button on there that says buy now. It'll take you to Amazon, or you can go straight to amazon.com. Memoirs of a Bagman, The Ostomy Guy Story. Check it out. Hey everybody, this is Austin Powers, the Ostomy Guy. We're here today with Josh Silverman. Josh and I hooked up randomly through one of our Remicade nurses, told him about my website. He reached out to me. He happens to work at KSN News here in Wichita, Channel 3, and we just got done doing a cool little interview for the news for my book release. But believe it or not, Josh reached out to me and informed me that he has Crohn's disease and was diagnosed with it when he was 9 years old. And I was like, holy crap, dude, I'm sending you my book. I want you to read it. If you have any interest, come on my show and do a podcast. I'd love it. Check out everything I'm doing. And he did it. And here he is today. And we're getting ready to kind of figure out a little bit about what the last, it would be 11 years for you, 12 years, 13 years
13.
of having Crohn's has been like. So thanks for coming on the show, man.
Of course, thank you. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it happened. I just moved from New York. I'm from New York. I went to school in Connecticut. I graduated in May, and I came out here, to work for KSN for Good Day Kansas, and I love it. And I was getting my Remicade. I think 2 weeks into being out here, I didn't really know many people, and I told my nurse that I work for Good Day Kansas on KSN, and she said, well, you should check out Austin Powers. At first I was just like, all right, she's joking. I mean, Austin Powers. I know you probably get that all the time.
Every day.
Yeah, every day. And so I reached out, and you sent the book, and here we are. We just did a segment that will air on Good Day Kansas, and I'm happy to be on the podcast.
Dude, thanks for coming. So tell me a little bit about getting diagnosed. You were diagnosed when you were 9, but kind of just a little bit about your journey back then and when it all kind of accumulated and where you're coming from.
Yeah. So like I said, grew up in New York, and I don't, it's like you don't really know why you get diagnosed in terms of like why this happens. You don't, you're not all of a sudden bruised or something like that. You don't eat something and then it happens. And it was January. I was in 4th grade. And I was always like a pretty healthy kid. I always loved food and eating. And all of a sudden, it was like kind of a week or two, I just kind of stopped eating, and I started getting really sick. I started getting like strep throat a lot, and like canker sores in your mouth and everything like that. And each time my mom would take me to the doctor, and they would give me some antibiotics. So I got strep throat like every 2 or 3 weeks. It was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I had very little energy, but then I would take these antibiotics and I would feel better. And I would have fevers. I'd come home. I'd have no energy. I wouldn't want to eat. I mean, who in 4th grade don't really want to do school? But it was like way less than I ever wanted to, and just going to bed really early and always kind of needing to take a nap. And then my mom would call me down for dinner, and I'd be so hungry, and I'd sit down and there'd be food in front of me, and I wouldn't eat. And so it was kind of one of those things where I don't know what happened. And so for about 4 months, I got tested for a bunch of different things. They thought maybe mono or Lyme disease due to like the fatigue or, acid reflux or something. But eventually I got the correct test done, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's in April when I was 9.
Dude, you sure it wasn't mono, the kissing disease back then?
No.
New York. Where in New York?
So 40 minutes north of New York City in Westchester County.
All right, so I was just in New York, and 40 minutes from New York City is still New York City.
Yeah, well, exactly. You could be 3 hours in New York City.
It took us 30 minutes to get a handful of blocks one day when we were out there. Holy cow. Man. So when you were diagnosed, what kind of medicines or things like that did you just start getting thrown on the normal amount of stuff? I mean,
yeah.
Well, usually, depending on what your symptoms were and things like that, how'd they treat you?
So I was on a bunch of different stuff. I was on Pentasa. It was like Pentasa 3 times a day and antibiotics twice a day and a steroid just because they were like, this kid needs to get healthy pretty quick. and then my cheeks got inflamed, but I was doing so well, and they had to kind of slowly take me off that. And I remember this like a funny story. One day, like we're playing football at school, and like at this point, like I'm on all this medication, and I'm not like completely healthy, but it's like 10 times better than what it was before I was diagnosed. And like I'll always remember this. We were playing football, and I made like a good play or something, and my friend was like, "What, dude? What are you on, steroids or something?" And I was like, "A little do you know," and so, so then it was kind of on that, and then that stopped working, and then 6-MP, just a bunch of different medications.
Yeah, dude.
And nothing really worked. I was on like a cocktail of stuff for about 3 years. And then I had my first surgery when I was in 7th grade, and I was incredibly sick. It was, I would not been doing well for a couple months. And my mom took me into the city to get an MRE, right? Where you drink the liquid and so they put you through the machine. And I was so sick, I threw all the liquid up. They didn't even put me through the machine. I got him. Basically, I was admitted to the hospital and I had surgery, I think a day or two later. They removed like feet of my intestines, like I think 5 or 6 feet, like a lot of it. Got out of the hospital, after a week. And like I'm in 7th grade. So for me, on the one hand, I'm like, oh, great, I'm not going to school. On the other hand, I'm like, wow, I felt terrible for 3 years. And now I had surgery and I don't really know what's going to happen next. And then for a couple more years, it really was like not progressing the way it should. I'd switched doctors a couple of times. I'm on Remicade at this point. And when I had my first surgery, they thought they saw more inflamed areas, but they had already taken out so much from this 60-pound 7th grader that they were like, we're not taking more. And I must have been that little extra bit because I had a second surgery to the date 3 years later. I'm in 10th grade at this point. Had surgery, had I think about 6 inches more removed, and I have felt great since then.
Oh, wow.
I have had 1 or 2 minor setbacks, but I'm able to go throughout my day. I'm only on Remicade every 7 weeks now. It's been like that for a couple of years.
Okay. And
I'm able to get my treatment out here, wonderful nurses at Wesley. And it's just been much smoother sailing since then from its really dark days, between like 4th and I would say 9th grade, 10th grade.
Where are you? What doctor are you going to see here? Do you have somebody you're seeing yet?
Actually, I don't.
So you've just been getting Remicade since you've been here, and your annuals will come around. You'll have to find somebody.
Yeah, so I've been here, only 3 months. So now I'm settled in here. That'll be like the next thing to do on one of my off days is to find a doctor.
Off days, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, because I don't have the normal weekend.
Right. No, it's just like we're so busy no matter what, really doing everything. Yeah. It's like it's so hard to just find an off day because even on off days you're busy.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you had that? You were in 10th grade when you had your second resection?
I was in 10th grade.
And since then you've been pretty good. Were you playing sports in there, or what were you doing in high school?
I mean, look, I could blame not playing sports on my Crohn's, but I'm not. I was never an athletic kid. I grew up skiing.
Okay.
And besides having surgeries, I like recuperating after that time, I couldn't ski then, but I was still skiing, still playing basketball and football with my friends. So I probably would have been taller throughout. I mean, I hit 5 feet when I was in 10th grade. So, I mean, I was tiny. Yeah. But I did growth hormone and feeding tube and stuff like that to kind of get ahead. Yeah. And then once I was to kind of where I needed to, I mean, I remember being in the doctor's office and looking at like that curved chart where you're supposed to be and like always being way below. Had the second surgery, crept up, and then got to the point, got off growth hormone, got the tube removed, and it was like the thing in the belly, like not through the nose. I was like, I'm definitely not doing that.
Yeah.
And
those are brutal.
Yeah, I mean brutal. And so, yeah, I play sports now. I play a lot of basketball. I'm not very good, but my building has a basketball court on the 6th floor, so I try to play every day. It's outdoors, so some days I can't. It's too windy or inclement weather, but I love it. I play a lot.
Dude, that's awesome. So in my family, I'd like to say that Crohn's stunted my growth. I mean, I might be big to you, but I'm the smallest of a bunch of giants in my family. So I'm only 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in there. But all my siblings are like bigger than I am.
Oh,
so
wow.
in a way, it did stunt my growth, but not really.
Yeah.
Because I'm still pretty big.
Yeah, the 6'4" person saying that to the 5'8" kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to make you feel a little better. So tell me, how did, even now, how does having Crohn's affect your relationships and things like that? Does it? I mean, since you're feeling better and things are going pretty good, you're probably living a pretty normal life. You're fairly active and things like that. It probably doesn't come into play all too much, but I'm assuming everything you went through gave you a perspective on life most people don't have. So I guess what I'm asking is, how does that affect your relationships with your friends at work and things like that?
Yeah, so to kind of answer both those questions, so I would say like my high school friends, they all knew because I was going through that stuff in high school.
Yeah. The
college friends, they knew because like, you know, again, Remicade is kind of hard to get on the weekend. Most places won't do it, so I'd miss like over Wednesday of school. I'd be like, I'm going home on a Wednesday, and they'd be like, why?
Yeah.
You know, I'd have to come home for a doctor's appointment, and it's fine. I went to school about 2 hours away, drove home, and like I never was feeling bad really in school. I didn't have any. I never had to go home on a night because I wasn't feeling well, so I was always pretty good with that. So they'd be like, well, you're so healthy, you know, like no one else had to ever just go home on a Wednesday or a Thursday or something. So I mean, my roommates and my close friends, anyone where it kind of came up, my senior year of college, we were able to do, I studied journalism for our senior like project, kind of write about whatever. It had to be like this big project, and I did athletes with Crohn's. So I was lucky enough to interview David Garrard, Theo Fleury, Kathleen Baker, the Olympian. And so I put out that piece, awesome. And I was kind of like, you know, I have Crohn's, and so this was like a passion project, and so that kind of some people, but I think a lot of people kind of read the article and you know, like it. I got one or two texts where I was like, oh, bro, like I didn't know you had that. Like my sister has that, or something. But it wasn't like an outpouring thing because, like, again, you know, you're feeling well, so it's like I don't really know what is going on, and then, you know, here, so like I'll get Remicade and I'll just kind of go off the grid, so to speak, for a couple hours. Like, you know, some people might choose to take snapshots of, you know, the IV in their arm and then in the hospital room. I was like, I'll go the other way for 3 hours every 7 weeks. I'll just turn the Wi-Fi off on everything and, you know, watch an old Star Wars movie or something like that. And then in terms of like perspective on everything, like I feel like being in fourth grade, you don't really know what you're going through. Yeah. And then as it progressed, you were just like, man, like this isn't happening to anyone else. And like, granted, like a lot of people did have stuff that they were going through, and like some people were going through more serious stuff than I was, but like that's a minority. Mm-hmm. And so you're just like, oh man, like none of these other people have to deal with this. And so it was just like something that I guess I had to work through, and I think it lets me like put things into perspective. But I still get angry when I hit 3 red lights in a row. I still get angry when you know, like I'm not someone that is like totally zen because I know what it could be worse. Like stuff still gets me angry and frustrated, but I think I'm like I don't take for granted how well I'm feeling now.
What were the 2 hardest things that growing up having Crohn's, 1 or 2, I don't care, but the couple of hardest parts for you about having it, besides, you know, obviously the surgeries and recoveries are difficult, but what are your thoughts there?
Do you mean like one specific like night or something, or
no?
Like
I mean like whether it be the constantly having to go to the doctor for things and that just being a side life on top of being a kid, or randomly having to deal when you were sick. I mean, you're having to disappear and go and deal with your stuff alone and kind of come back, and you probably. Your friends know, and even when your friends know, you aren't telling them about it. You just don't get into detail about it. Even with you and I both having it, if I'm in the middle of a flare, I mean, you're just going to kind of get it. I'm going to get it, and we'll kind of know, but you don't talk that much about it. So for me, it was like loneliness of not being able to share that part of myself, which I was kind of fine with, but I'm also a very social person. So that's what I'm asking is, what were a couple of the hardest things about having it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was a little bit of just like literally like not feeling well, and then like not being able to really do anything about it. So it's like you'd come home and like you'd want to like go be with your friends, and you're just exhausted, and you're like, I should not be this tired, and you don't want to eat. Sometimes I'd like be afraid to go out to eat with my friends, because I'd be like, I know like for some reason I'm like so hungry, but then the food comes on, like I'm almost embarrassed because I have like 3 bites, and then like I don't like that unwanted attention. And then the other part was just up until like 10th grade, 11th grade, when I really started growing, and I wouldn't say filling out, I'm still pretty scrawny, but like having nothing to do with Crohn's, I just don't go to the gym. But it's just being smaller than like I really should have been.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like I said, I hit 5 feet in 10th grade. Like you're a pretty small 9th grader at that point.
Yeah.
And so I kind of embraced it as like the fun, small, whatever goofy kid who joked about not being good at sports. And I think like going through all that has like made me have a really good sense of humor. I think a lot of that comes from my parents and my family, but I think a lot of it also comes from like what I've gone through.
Has it affected, have you felt the impact like in the middle of an interview or anything like that while you've been working since you've been here, or everything pretty good?
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. Like I said, there hasn't really been anything the last 5-6 years that has happened. I think I always kind of hope that it's not nothing bad's gonna happen, and I know if I have like a big interview the next day, like maybe I'll just have some like chicken breast and rice just in case.
Yeah.
But no, I've been very lucky. Nothing has happened in Wichita, nothing really in college. I've traveled to cover games. I covered our basketball teams in college. We were gone for 4 or 5 days at a time, for postseason tournaments, and something, like in a different universe, maybe something happens, and then like that then falls upon me and the other seniors and juniors I've traveled with, but thankfully nothing's come up.
So is there what have you learned from having Crohn's that you probably wouldn't have learned otherwise, just in an outlook on life in that sense? It's kind of a deep question, but I guess I'm asking. Yeah. So for me, in my situation, I'd say being able to receive the care and love of others when I couldn't love them back, and being the recipient of that is something incredibly unique. You get taken care of by your parents, you get taken care of by your loved ones, but when others constantly have to go out of their way on a permanent basis to care for me, that has given me, in hindsight and now looking forward, has given me such a good perspective on human nature and human beings in general, because I've been cared for and loved by a whole gamut of different people, from nurses to my parents and family members and friends and people I wasn't even expecting, people come out of the woodwork. But like that, for me, if I wouldn't have been sick, I wouldn't have gotten any of that. And so I guess I'm just asking if there's anything that you've noticed that you wouldn't have learned otherwise if it wasn't for having to deal with just this kind of stuff since you were little.
I think, like, obviously there's like the cheesy answer where like you don't always know what people are going through, and like that's very true, but I think I've learned to like appreciate just people who like would smile at you throughout the day. So like the nurse who recommended me to you, or you to me, like she's one of the nicest people I've literally ever met. I wanted to just like give her a hug, because like the way that she treats me when I'm getting my treatment like can make a big difference. And so like obviously my parents, my whole family, but when it's when it's strangers, it just makes a difference in my life, and I try to be that person that's like always happy, and like or at least like knowing, like being able to think like, all right, you don't know what that other person is going through. Like that's why technology makes me so angry, is because like I expect technology to work. Like I can't rationalize around technology, but like if someone else doesn't get me a file I need by 5, and then they're gone, and then it comes in the next morning, it's like, well, you don't know what happened. If they make a habit of it, that's fine. But if something could have happened with them or their family, where they had to leave before they got a chance to get to it, and I don't rush to judgment on that. So I'll give the people the benefit of the doubt.
When you're the one when you're the one who you don't know when you're going to need the love and charity and care of others.
Yeah.
You kind of have a cognizance about, all right, maybe I should just hold off a little bit and not judge them, because maybe they got something going on too that I don't know about.
Yeah, and then Crohn's honestly has like made me deal with situations better. So like, as when I say like, yeah, nothing has happened where I've needed to, like, I've not been able to do an interview or something because of my Crohn's. Like, I've also needed to like maybe run to the bathroom where like I didn't think where I didn't plan for that time. So then like all of a sudden you're like, all right, like how can I figure out how to like fit that into my schedule? You know, like it's small things like that where you don't think that experience would help you, and then all of a sudden it's like, maybe I'm gonna, I mean, not this job because like everything's sort of planned out, but at school, like if I'm covering a game, like all right, I'm gonna work 10 minutes later, and then like the arena's gonna be cleared out, nice,
right,
empty back, you know, and then you kind of figure out little things, and I feel like it's kind of helped me in my everyday life.
Do you have getting Remicade? How long have you been getting Remicade?
Oh man,
a couple
years. So I think probably since I was in like 8th or 9th grade.
2000 and what?
I'm trying to remember. It's probably been about 8 or 9 years.
Okay, so for quite a while. When you first started getting it, was it an all-day deal, or has it always been a partial day thing?
So when I first started getting it, for insurance reasons, I don't even understand all that stuff, but I had to go into New York City, which was like an hour away. So by the time you go in, and then maybe it's a little bit longer than an hour, and then you get the treatment, which is about a little over 2 hours, and then you leave, and it's whatever. It was like my mom was just like, "No, like we're not going to put that pressure on ourselves," and she was great with that. Like maybe we'd visit my cousins who live in the city or something like that, like have dinner with them. Now that I'm, at school, I try to either go to my morning classes and then schedule it for the afternoon, or schedule on a day where I didn't have classes, or, if I didn't want to go to class. No, I'm kidding. But, and then here.
No, we do that sometimes. Yeah. Don't think we don't.
Now that I'm working, I just ask them for the latest appointment. But now my schedule changed. We just launched a Sunday version of our show, 10:30 a.m. on KSN. Very cool. And so I now have Mondays off. And so now I've now scheduled my Remicade for Mondays. But so now that works.
You can't get your haircut done on Mondays on your day.
Yeah, well, my barber's he's closed on Mondays.
Yeah,
but
most of them. That's why you can't. Now that your day off is on that day, you can't use your day off to get a dang haircut.
Yeah.
Well, I was asking about Remicade because it's 2, 3, 4 hours of downtime. It's like 3 hours for mine. And I usually get a movie in, or 3 or 4 episodes of Ballers, or whatever it may be. But are you a movie guy?
Yeah.
Do you like movies?
Movies and TV shows.
What are some of your favorite movies that you are kind of go-to for you that you could watch over and over, but are your go-tos?
Yeah. So Star Wars and Moneyball, for some reason, whenever I get Remicade, I kind of watch those. I love sports, and I love the writing in Moneyball. Star Wars is great. Now Netflix. So it used to be like, you go into hospital, like the Wi-Fi wasn't always great and stuff, but now you can like kind of download stuff from Netflix. So I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan. So I'll download some stand-up and knock them out.
Did you see Gaffigan when he was here?
I did. So I've been here 3 months, and I've been very fortunate to see Tom Segura, Jim Gaffigan, and Sebastian Maniscalco.
Oh, dude.
And so when I say huge stand-up fan, like stand up over a concert any day of the week.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, that's a lot of stand up, but it's like, given the opportunity, I'm there.
I love stand up. Jim Gaffigan's awesome. I was hollering at him, trying to get him to do a podcast.
Oh, really?
Trying to get him to come to holler back at me. I couldn't. He's obviously, it was like 2 weeks before he was on mine. Before he was in Wichita, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and then I'm sitting there hollering at him to be on my piddly little podcast.
Yeah, I tried to reach out to. Well, I did reach out to Sebastian's people, and so I'm a huge fan of his. I actually saw him when he was at MSG in New York. I've been a fan of his for years, and they were very, very, very courteous to me, and were just like, hey, he's getting into Wichita only a few hours before, so he's not going to have time. And I just appreciated them even getting back to me, but that would have That would have been something
That
else.
would have been cool. Just so, do you have any favorite quotes? So, any favorite quotes from your movies, or like do you listen to talks or anything like that kind of get you motivated or anything like that?
You know, I'm not a big like motivator, like that type of guy. That stuff that doesn't really do it for me. So I'm like in a business where I'm passionate about my job. That's why I moved to Wichita, and that's why, you know, I love doing it. So I feel like I don't really wake up, like my lock screen is the New York Giants. It's not a motivational quote. So I don't need that little extra bit.
Yeah.
That's never kind of been my thing.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who do that, and they'll send it around or post it on Instagram, but it's never sort of been my go-to.
So I just wrote one down just because we're talking about it, but the one that I wrote down is "We are what we repeatedly do," and I love that one.
Yeah.
We are what we repeatedly do. What about music? You got any favorite songs?
Yeah, so I guess I can't say that I'm a huge music fan after I just said, you know, stand up over concerts, but I love Bruce Springsteen, you know, growing up in New York with parents that loved him. So, you know, right next to Jersey. So I'm a big fan of him, Billy Joel. And I like current music too, but I wouldn't say that there's one specific art. I mean, Bruce and Billy Joel, but after that, there's not anyone that I'm so diehard for.
Josh, man, thanks for coming on. This is
awesome. Of course. Well, thank you. I respect a lot about you doing this. And, you know, I messaged you back when you wrote the book that you were just very, I mean, not graphic, but like you said, descriptive and very open about it. So
candid. Yeah,
candid. That's a great word for it. Because graphic almost has a negative connotation, but, you know, graphic is, I mean, candid's a good word for it because it's honest and it's the truth about what you go through. And obviously, you know, I don't live with that, but I have a lot of respect for you for going through it and then talking through it.
Dude, so in one of my descriptions that in the press release that was put together, I used a couple of your quotes because I love hearing. I took a bunch of quotes from a bunch of people that I got feedback from, and from other people who have Crohn's, and when someone else who has Crohn's, where they say this is next level stuff, or dude, I can't believe this or this. I'm always It's really cool just because that's where I get stirred up is when you hear someone else's story. So it's like that perfect feedback that you need. But thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. And thanks everybody for listening. Hey everybody, it's your host, the Ostomy Guy. We've been listening to everybody else's story, and I've been kind of hiding from it. But the time is here. My story's out. The Ostomy Guy story, Memoirs of a Bagman. Finally published and ready to buy. www.amazon.com. Go buy one for yourself and one for a loved one. You won't regret it.